What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, that's where we talk about the news topics that happen in the scale world of RC. This is the first episode of 2022. Here's to a good year. Let's kick it off with this week's stories. First story for this week, Knight Customs has a new kit to improve the ground clearance of the Element IFS kit. The Element IFS kit, when you buy it out of the box, or if you get it on one of the trucks that includes it out of the box, like the Night Runner or the Trail Runner, then you may notice that the clearance underneath of that front diff is pretty terrible. This kit from Knight Customs raises the center diff up, but leaves the wheels in the stock position. This will allow you to run the same size tires, but with much better ground clearance in the center. A big upgrade over how that Element system is out of the box. If you're interested in this, Knight Customs has everything that you need, and I'll link to his sites where you can get it in the description below. Next, let's jump into the RC four-wheel drive Trailfinder 3. This would, as we would imagine, is probably going to be replacing the Trailfinder 2. Now, there have been a number of changes to this truck to improve it over the Trailfinder 2. This truck now has a stamped steel chassis rather than the machined aluminum one. So it gives it a much more realistic style, and it's got a flared design where it's wider at the rear and then narrows in the front, very similar to how the old Tamiya Bruiser did. A much more realistic chassis now on the Trailfinder 3. But with that change in the chassis, however, the axles remaining the same, there are some funny things. The rear leaf springs are inboarded. They're not in line with the chassis. They sit to the inside of it, which is a little bit odd. It is still leaf spring, as we have just mentioned. The axles, again, unchanged, but they are mounted to those leaf springs now with actual U-bolts rather than the old perch style that just used a couple of screws on the top. Now, the motor and transmission are new. These are a plastic molded housing for the motor transmission area. Now, I say motor because it has a realistic looking engine that sits underneath of the hood area, styled after an actual Toyota. And inside of that gives you room to use the electric motor that is included. A regular brushed motor is included with the RTR on the Trailfinder 3. And at this point, this is being called the Trailfinder 3 Launch Edition. And this truck is being launched at $650, which is a substantial increase from the Trailfinder 2, somewhere around $200. Now, this being the Launch Edition and the number of changes that this has versus what a normal TF2 has, there may be another version coming that's going to be closer in price to the previous one. This one does have machined aluminum wheels. They're 155s, which are too small looking for this truck and not properly scaled, but whatever. But beyond just those machined beadlocks, it does have metal bumpers front and rear. Those are things that the original Trailfinder 2 didn't have. So possibly they're going to remove the machined aluminum wheels and go with the stamped beadlocks that they typically use. And then maybe they'll throw on the plastic bumpers again. And that could start to bring the cost back down to around where the previous Trailfinder 2 was. So maybe we're going to see that, or maybe this is a update in the price range. If they are going to release two versions, it seems like it would have been a good idea to release both of them side by side to not just make people think that every Trailfinder 3 is going to be $650 some odd dollars, which based on the reaction of a lot of people out there does seem to be a little bit higher than they would expect. Now, it is RTR. It comes with standard RC four-wheel drive electronics and a nickel metal battery. Seems like they should have just saved that shipping and kept the battery. The truck did see several other updates, lots of changes with, better skid plates so it doesn't hang up like it did. The drop for the drive shaft is on the correct side now, so it doesn't have that funky geometry. The motor's been lowered for a better center of gravity, etc., etc. A new generation of the Trailfinder 3, this truly appears to be. So if we see more information on a non-launch edition at a better price, we'll of course cover that again here on the Scale News Update. And speaking of new generations of trucks, Boom Racing is advertising a teaser for their new BRX02. Had the BRX01 previously, and now we're going to see an 02. This one, a little bit interesting. It appears that it's going to have a carbon fiber chassis, which seems like kind of going a step back from where they were with a more scale machined chassis. So an odd choice there, but it does look like they're going to be offering a 4-link or leaf spring suspension set in this kit. like RC four-wheel drive, it appears that they're going to be using the same body on this model as they did the previous. And beyond that, we haven't seen a ton of information out of the new Boom Racing truck. So I'm sure that we'll see that to follow. It kind of put a coming soon type video out there and just kind of waiting at this point. So I'm sure that information will come soon. And of course, we'll talk about it here again. But speaking of circling back on some items, the SSD locking hubs for the Trail King are in stock and available now. Those, as well as that CEN KG1 edition of the F450. If you were looking to pick up either of those or versions of them, you can find those at the retailers that carry them typically now. Both of those had some pretty quick release times from the actual announcement, so always nice to hear. For any of you Axio SCX6 owners who live in the land of overkill, Reefs RC is now announcing the release of the Beast 1000 and Beast 2000 servo winches. So if you needed a truly ridiculous winch to go along with the size and scale of the SCX6, this is the option that I've seen most recently. You may have to find actual winch line though. And then let's step the scale up yet another notch and talk about the new Primal V3 version of their monster truck. The Raminator was the one that you saw most recently, but now they also have a second body choice, a more square body option. This is the V3, not a complete redesign from the previous ones, but some significant upgrades to items that were the most troublesome in the past on those. These do run a typical two-stroke motor like you would have found in a Baja 5B or a Losi 5T, those type of vehicles. Very typical 5th scale engines in both of these. These things are not cheap, but they are impressive. They are fun to see run, even if you're not a huge monster truck fan. Still worth going to check out. There's a few videos you can watch. This is definitely not your normal front yard basher. And bringing the scale back down just a little bit, RC four-wheel drive recently released some new Mickey Thompson Baja Pro X 2.2 tires. These would be a perfect addition to something like a Bomber or a Rift. Not a lot of 2.2 tire options these days, but RC four-wheel drive giving you guys another one. This is a super aggressive, would look very appropriate on something like a Rift. And RC four-wheel drive's rubber compound can definitely get the job done. So check those out if you're looking for a little bit more aggressive tire option. Last week, Biddy Designs released their newest no prep body, a Mustang M550. They're calling this one, and it is gorgeous. They did an amazing job. They've got some of the best looking bodies. This one, no different. We saw previews or sneak peeks of it before, but now fully released and just as good looking as we would have imagined. Absolutely amazing job. If you're into no prep, you can't miss these. Definitely worth a look. Check it out. Links in the description below. You can get those from A-Main or overseas from Biddy Designs. Not sure of their other distributors here in the US, but definitely worth taking a look at. And speaking of no prep bodies, Drive RC is teasing a Civic hatch body. Now, it's got the flared front fenders like you would see on a front wheel drive drag car running slicks. So I'm not sure if they're trying to push a front wheel drive style drag car. Kind of interesting in its own right. I've seen that done maybe a time or two, but I don't know what they've got in mind or what specs they're going after, if it's the standard wheelbase or whatnot. But seeing oddball bodies, always something I enjoy. Drive RC, we've seen a number of their bodies here in the past. We don't see them release body options as often as the bigger names, but when they do, they seem to do a good job. So if you're looking for a front wheel drive Civic drag car body, hold your breath. We also had a new release from FMS again, one of the busiest companies in scale right now, it appears. But they released this new 1/18th scale Toyota Hilux, a fully licensed Toyota Hilux. This is 1/18th scale. It is a standard ring and pinion style small scale axle, but the body is highly detailed, full drop bed. It's got an interior in it. The color is molded into the body, but overall the look of it, pretty decent for a 1/18th scale. Not quite as full all out detail as FMS's like 12th scale or 10th scale stuff, but still looks pretty good. Matt from Scale Builders Guild did a review on this last week as well, and I'll try and link to that in the description below in case you want more information on this truck. For you 124 scale fans, Furatech just had a bunch of new releases, including their own radio and receiver packages with micro tiny receivers. Great for the scale of the 124 scale stuff. If you're trying to make, small compact builds, sometimes that receiver can be a pretty good sized chunk of space in those if you're trying to use regular 110 scale receivers. So they've come up with a nice compact little unit. They also have a new skid plate, transmission, and motor combo, and it's labeled for multiple vehicles in case you're trying to, put that into whatever possible build that you have. Now, they also released a handful of new in-runner brushless motors. Up to this point, Furatech has only released outrunner motors for the 124 scale stuff. Now they've got some of these in-runners. And lastly, it also seems that they've released a new version of their chassis that they had released before. Before they had kind of a bodiless design style. So the whole chassis kind of looked like the shape of a vehicle. Now they've got a more slimmed down carbon fiber version. So you can probably take and put just about any body on top of this and make it look appropriate. Also much easier to fit things without having motors collide with other structural parts of the chassis, more, easier places to put your electronics and such. So if you're a 124 scale fan, you no doubt know Furatech. They've got some brand new options worth going over to their website and checking out. Quite a while back, we had got word of a new Tamiya D90 version of the CC02 coming out, and we're finally seeing official news of that from Tamiya now. It's loaded up on their website. The CC02 has been out for a couple of years now. It's not the most capable solid axle, platform for a trail truck. It's done in a very Tamiya way. It's very busy for exactly what this thing is, but that shouldn't surprise any of us by now. If you've ever built Tamiyas, nothing should really surprise you at that point. But if you're a fan of D90s, Tamiya's bodies are done about as well as anybody, especially if you're not looking to really dominate off-road terrain. Just kind of tool around. Then it's a solid option. Starting this Wednesday, Matt from the Scale Builders Guild and myself will be starting our new series on the Road to Scale Nationals. Scale Nationals is going to be held in Alabama this year in April, early April, like the 7th to the 11th. Tickets for the event sold out super quick. So actually competing, if you didn't get tickets already, at this point isn't possible. But of course, anybody could go and spectate, and the terrain is amazing in case you wanted to go and run trucks alongside while others were competing. So always an option. But Matt and I will be going over our paths as we prepare our class 1, 2, and 3 vehicles for the Scale Nationals. Definitely looking forward to the event and getting back to building some trucks like this. So follow along. It's going to start this Wednesday, and then they're going to be uploaded every other Wednesday until the event. So make sure and check that out. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, so you see those videos when they pop up from both myself and Scale Builders Guild. And along with those videos going up on Wednesday, Matt and I will still be continuing our live stream takeovers every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. Catch us live as we chat about projects and what's going on and what's happening, all of the good stuff that we find some way to fill a couple of hours every Wednesday. Now, being that this is the first episode of 2022, I went back to the episode in late August where I asked people to make predictions of what was going to happen by the end of 2021. And I went back, tried to find any good guesses that actually landed in there. The best one that I saw was from Bionic Scale Crawlers, and he said year-end prediction was VP has a new rig release around December. It was at like the end of October, but that's a pretty good guess. That was the closest one that wasn't just a super general throw out there. There was a lot of guesses for like a Traxxas 24th scale. Didn't happen. Definitely a lot of people that had that guess specifically. Beyond that, there was just some scattering of other ones. For this year, we've got a whole year ahead of us. As far as the market goes, I think that we're still going to see some supply chain issues, at least through the first half of the year, at the very least. I think we can foresee that far at this point. Second half of the year, maybe it looks better. As far as new releases, it seems like it's going to be another strong year. 2021 was a pretty decent year for the market. I think that momentum that those couple of years will have had will help push even more new releases to come in 2022. My prediction for the year is that we're going to see 2 completely new platform releases. Not totally new. They can reuse some pieces here and there, but 2 mainly new platforms, not just new bodies or anything like that, but actual platforms from some of the big names. I don't know that it'll be Axial because they just released the Rift. The Axial SCX3 isn't that old. The Capra, also not that old. I feel like Axial's kind of put out their newest platforms recently. So that kind of leaves Traxxas and Associated. Maybe HPI could pull something out of nowhere. Don't have a lot of hope on that one. Or maybe if it's something with a little bit more speed in mind, maybe it comes out under a Losi name. But that's gonna be my prediction for the year. I wanna hear yours though. I'm gonna come back to this episode the beginning of next year. I wanna hear what you guys think is gonna happen this year. Make some good guesses. Don't just throw those, overly general ones out there. Make something specific. Come up with the actual name of what the product is. Throw it out there. 2021 was a wild year. And whether the last couple of years were really hard on you or just normal hard on you, like, most times, I still hope for better for you in 2022 and better for all of us in the RC hobby. With that, thanks for watching the Scale News Update every Tuesday. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, hit the notification button so you see the videos when they pop up on every Tuesday morning. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.